Canada is celebrating the start of a new pathway with the United States. Decades in the making, the Gordie Howe Bridge is finally open. We're going to show you a live look of the skyline between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan. Traffic is flowing after months of delays and political road bumps. We have extensive coverage for you. We begin at the bridge itself. The CBC's Acton Clarkin is there. He joins us live from Windsor. Acton, this is a big day for communities on both sides of the bridge. What's happening in that now, and how did we get to this point?
Andrew, we're outside the fence right now. Behind me is some of these toll booths, the cars going over, paying about $8 each way Canadian to go from one side to the other. And these toll booths have been open since about 10:30. Now officials are warning people if they want to come try out and use the bridge today to expect heavy traffic. So far, it maybe hasn't been as heavy as at least I was expecting. Cars have been trickling over, and you mentioned, I mean, this has been a long time coming. I think if I could sum up the local feeling the best, the word is just finally. This bridge has been literally more than 25 years in the making, everything from planning to financing to construction. And Canada paid for this, by the way. $6.4 billion is at least what it called, and it's taken a while. It hasn't been perfect either. It's years over when it was originally scheduled to open. They're over budget what it was originally supposed to cost, but it's dealt with some challenges. I mean, we've been through a global pandemic. Construction costs have been rising, not to mention some of these recent political tensions. I mean, we've been talking to you for a few weeks, maybe even months, about Mark Carney and Donald Trump sort of going back and forth over this bridge. Now the US and Canada recently signing a new deal with when it comes to revenue sharing for the tolls to get it open. Here's an official on just how long this has taken.
There have been many points where people have thought, oh no, how are we going to solve this problem? What has happened and what has been important throughout the time is understanding those issues, coming up with points of resolution and working through those. We had to overcome any number of challenges. I mean, this project was delivered during the pandemic. So many opportunities presented themselves for us to come up to solutions to bring us to this day.
Now, in case you don't know, this bridge was obviously named after Gordie Howe, Canadian-born Detroit Red Wings hockey legend. He goes by Mr. Hockey, or simply, if you wear a number 9 jersey around this part of the country, people know you're wearing a Gordie Howe jersey. He's the guy, and he's Saskatchewan-born. He means a lot to so many people, both in Windsor and in Detroit, and his family were some of the first people ever to go across. They were the first ones to cross this morning, along with some trucking companies. Let's take a look at that crossing.
I know it's been frustrating for a lot of people, and so I think that makes today all the more amazing that it has actually opened today, and a lot of people are very happy. And when you're on the bridge and you look up, it's just amazing, the symmetry. We're the only car out there, and then pulling in, and there are like dozens of Border Patrol agents greeting us there, all with smiles, and everyone's very happy. But if anything, just a bit surreal, yeah.
Let me give you a little bit of context here. I mean, the bridge is for everyday folk like you and me to cross, but big rig trucks play a major role in this too. Trucking companies have been telling me about plans to switch maybe from their routes they currently use. So right now, if a truck is coming through Windsor and Detroit, they're using the existing Ambassador Bridge that's privately owned by a family company. And about a third of all trade in the entire country comes from this one area. $1 billion a day flows between Windsor and Detroit, which is pretty mind-boggling to think about. And the advantage this bridge might have, it's a direct connection to Highway 401 and the I-75 in Detroit. Whereas if a trucker is using the existing bridge, they come out in Windsor and they have to go through a neighborhood with shops and stoplights and all that kind of thing. All that takes time, and trucking companies have been telling me that all that extra time loses them money. So this bridge could become the new de facto choice, but opening day, I think some trucking companies are maybe still seeing what the kinks will be, and whether or not they change all their routes, that's TBD, Andrew, but we're gonna keep our eye on that.
You know, Acton, as we've been speaking, we can hear the engines humming in the background. I'm sure that is music to the ears of so many people on both sides of the border. The opening of the bridge is happening in a bit of a phased way. What comes next?
So today it's open to vehicles, so that's cars and trucks. But what's nice is this bridge actually has a walking and a biking path that's separate from the car and truck roadway. That will open on August 5th, so there's a little bit of time. And this is new to this area. Right now, if you want to go from Windsor to Detroit or the other way around, there's no way to walk over. There's no way to bike over. There are two other crossings, the Ambassador Bridge, as I mentioned, and the Windsor-Detroit Tunnel. You can't go on foot or on two wheels over either of those. So that's the next phase, August 5th. I've already been talking to some people biking along this little pathway outside. They're getting ready. They're excited for it to happen, and I'll be going over for sure when that happens.
Acton, thank you. The CBC's Acton Clarkin live in Windsor, Ontario. The U.S. ambassador to Canada has commented on the bridge's opening. Here's Pete Hoekstra's statement. Today, we welcome the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge to traffic between Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Ontario, adding new capacity to one of the busiest and most economically significant border crossings between the United States and Canada. President Trump made the opening possible and has consistently prioritized a safer, more secure, and prosperous North America. Now, as we know, the bridge has become a flashpoint in the ongoing trade tensions between Canada and the U.S., and some would argue a negotiating tactic for U.S. President Donald Trump. The CBC's Willie Lowry is in our Washington bureau with more on that.
The bridge was meant to draw the two countries closer together. It has instead tested and strained the bonds between Ottawa and Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to block the opening back in February, and he forced the two countries to essentially negotiate or renegotiate a revenue-sharing system from the tolls, despite the fact that Canada paid for the $6.4 billion construction of the bridge. Under this new agreement, Canada will receive 50% of the net toll revenues for the first 15 years of the bridge's operation, while the U.S. will receive the other half through an economic development fund. This is all taking place as CUSMA negotiations have essentially stalled, the U.S. Choosing not to renew it earlier this month, and instead is right now engaging in talks. Well, it's negotiating with Mexico, but only engaging in talks with Ottawa. But we know from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, who spoke to the Senate last week, that he hopes to be able to present President Trump with a framework from both sides that by the end of the year. So we will hopefully see or have some more clarity on the kind of status of CUSMA, on what the new relationship might look like by the end of the year. But whatever it looks like, tariffs likely going to be a significant part of that. We heard earlier this morning from Lawrence Herman. He's a former Canadian diplomat. He's now an international trade lawyer. And he says whether it's Trump or a future president, tariffs are likely going to be part of the equation. Let's take a brief listen.
The executive now has amassed huge amounts of unilateral authority, and I don't think a future president is going to give those powers up. Now, the tone may improve, but I fear that U.S. trade policy based on tariffs is not likely to change very much even after Mr. Trump leaves office. That's the reality, and I think Canadians have to recognize that.
Perhaps as evidence of that, Canada was not the only country that the U.S. slapped tariffs on last week. The U.S. also choosing to impose 10 to 12.5% tariffs on some 60 countries using forced labor as a justification.
That's Willie Lowry in Washington.